But there's nothing more exciting than giving and seeing the changes in people's lives, the faces, the surprise when you do something for them, totally unexpected. The Bible tells us that true happiness comes in giving, and God also tells us that we are to carry one another's burdens. And I know personally through my own experience, in a car wreck that I had, I was injured and had to have several surgeries, and my family and my friends came to my rescue. They brought flowers, they brought meals. When Sam couldn't take me to the doctor, my friends took me, and I believe that's why we are put here on earth, is to help each other and help each other through the difficulties in our lives.
The blessing of giving is truly watching and seeing other people be healed or being helped. But at the same time, I think, and it's a selfish thing, is actually yourself being healed. When I started following the Lord, and the one verse that always comes back to me is, and you see it on all my emails, and I believe with all my heart, is that too much is given, much is required. Too much more is given, much more is required. And we really do this to honor our Lord. I mean, it's about Him. He's loaned us His time. He's loaned us these resources. And like we were talking about before, God blesses us with it, but He has healed us by allowing us to help others. I encourage them to engage. Whether it's time, money, resources, whatever it is, just get out and do it.
There is nothing more rewarding in life than making a difference in someone's life.
I guess it was getting into my sophomore to junior year of high school. I was tired of being that kid that was the church kid, the preacher's kid, the perfect kid. So I started reaching out and looking, and here and there I would go to parties, sneak around my parents' back and just go to parties, and it was all chalked up to I was being normal, partying like a kid should party, doing what a kid should do. And in the meantime, I didn't realize I was pulling myself away from my family. I was cutting myself off from the church. I was cutting myself off from my friends. And I was wrapping myself up in drugs, alcohol, partying, and my outdoor life that I love. I felt God brought me through all that, because those few instances where I almost died, or my deep depression of like just taking uncontrollable amounts of drugs I didn't even know what would do to me. I couldn't even tell you what certain drugs still to this day look like. I don't know really what happened, but it was right around July 4th of 2011, I think the Monday after July 4th. I called my dad. I couldn't tell you how low it was, but I called him and told him I needed help. I think at that time I was sober enough to make that. I was crying, I was like, Dad, I can't do this no more. And by the time we had everything solved, we actually got me accepted the next day in the rehab, but by that time I was already back, using, and I didn't want to go, but my dad came and he pleaded with me, and I made a conscious decision. I was like, all right, I'll go. Didn't know what it was going to be like, didn't even know what I was up for. Coming out of rehab, I knew I needed a more spiritual base. I needed more, how do I say it? I needed more God, more structure, more God. I needed to know how to apply all these principles, because in being a preacher's kid, I knew enough theology, enough about the Bible. I could, I knew enough, but I had no application. I had no examples of application, and not for the fact that my family couldn't give it to me, but they didn't come from, none of my parents came from the addiction background. I didn't have people to look up to that could tell me, you know what, I went through the same thing and here's how I did it. Coming up to my last month, the pastor there told me about, he told me about Homes of Hope. And I didn't even ask a single question about it. I didn't even really inquire. I've heard things from other people about it, but I was like, all right, I'm down, sign me up. At the time, I was stuck in my head. I wasn't willing to commit my life to a life of meetings and a life of like alcoholic meetings, because deep down I knew that there was a way that God could just, that I could use God, and God was my answer. Every day we have devotions, and they are great. Pastor Bob leads the biblical, more theological part of learning about the Bible, and he gets very, very in depth with the Greek and teaches you the roots of everything and how it came and what they were talking about then and there. And then Pastor Nate has the more practical side of life and talking your problems out and application, so to speak. I've learned framing, I've learned how to use a skill solve, just basic levels of stuff. Even though I want to pursue my college, I've learned stuff that I could do at my house now. Instead of having to pay somebody, I can be efficient to myself. We are now building what we call low-cal housing. It is LEED efficient, energy efficient. The Lord has changed my life. It's given me hope. Not so much that I had a problem of a trust problem, period. I couldn't trust anybody, and I'm learning I don't have to look to myself for all answers. I don't have to look to another human being. He's given me faith that instead of thinking that I can't do it the rest of my life, I know God can, and I know He's going to, as long as I put in the work and the faith and the principle, God is going to provide, and I have no doubt that God will be there forever.